Hi, this is Kandia with Kandia Haynesworth Designs, and thank you so much for joining in today. We are discussing contracts for the embroidery business. A contract is a written or spoken agreement, especially one concerning employment, sales, or tenancy that is intended to be enforceable by law. Contracts are so important because it can be used in the legal system to ensure that both parties of an agreement are equally compensated for their work, goods, or money. Contracts are legal agreements that may or may not be written. Now let's talk about the embroidery business and the embroidery service contract. Embroidery services are usually based on customers' request and in many cases are customized or personalized specifically for them. When making an agreement for embroidery services, it should be clear, precise, and always in writing. Contracts can be on a generic receipt pad or handwritten. But presentation is everything, right? And anything that has your embroidery business's name on it represents you. Embroidery service contracts at Kandia Haynesworth Designs are generated for all ensembles and gift sets regardless the size. So when a customer receives an electronic invoice via email from CandiaHaynesworth.com, it is only after correspondence have been made between the customer and I via text, private messages on Facebook, private messages sent on YouTube, Instagram, or by email. Some would say my contracts are wordy and lengthy and a bit overwhelming to the customer, but I like to think that my contracts are clear, precise, and filled with all the details regarding the customer's order. Kandia Haynesworth Design Studio also have a telephone number for customers to call, text, or leave messages. I find forms of communication that can be recorded are most helpful when putting contracts together for customers. Payment methods accepted at Kandia Haynesworth Designs are Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, and Cash for point of sale or face-to-face transactions. Customers can use their credit cards to submit payment for electronic invoices and their debit cards too, as long as it has the Visa or MasterCard logo. The electronic invoice sent by CandiaHaynesworth.com is a summary of what the customer and I have discussed. It is the agreement for my embroidery services and a payment arrangement for the customer. When the email is sent, it's sent in a PDF format, and when it is opened by the customer, they have the option of selecting how they would like to view it based on the device they are using. If you direct your attention here, you'll see desktop and mobile. So desktop gives it a wide version of what the invoice, this part of the invoice that is, looks like. However, if you click on mobile, the customer can shrink it down to cell phone size. So when the electronic invoice is opened from CandiaHaynesworth.com, the customer can submit payment or review their statement. They can download their statement as a PDF or print it. The invoice number, amount due, credit cards accepted is visibly clear to the customer. They have the control of submitting payment securely and privately from their devices and lowering the amount of the deposit we agreed on. So let's say, for example, the deposit on a $65 order was $39. All they would have to do is simply change that amount, enter their information, and hit pay. Let's say after speaking to me, they realize that $39 may be too much on that particular day. They can enter amount, let's say, of $20, enter their information, and hit pay. The only thing is that $19 balance must be paid by the due date. Let's take a look at the statement issued by Kandia Haynesworth Designs. The title of the document along with the company's information is clearly stated. Each order is assigned an invoice number and a project title. The invoice number is here and the project title is here. I've found while developing your professional relationship with your customer, project titles are most helpful because as their list of orders grow, they will never remember an invoice number but always remember the project title. This will serve as useful information and as a reference later on. Now you can use a different title for your document. It can be called an invoice, summary, or bill. I just happen to like the word statement because it's not as aggressive as the word bill. The customer's information is presented here. For this video, I'm using Embroidery Boss because this is a mock invoice, but ideally, the invoice information for the customer will have the customer's name, the billing address, the telephone number, and the email address stated. If you direct your attention over here, let's take a look at the invoice date. The invoice date is the day the order was accepted. This is usually after a series of text messages, emails, private messages, whatever form of communication that we've used. This is the day that the customer decided they are ready to move forward and place the order. The payment due date is the day the amount for the first deposit is due. This date changes as the balance is reduced and the due date for the order approaches. The amount due for the order is the amount for the entire balance prior to any deposits made. Let's go through the details that would be on the statement from Kandia Haynesworth Designs. The first line is always going to be the referral source. It tells me where the order came from and who referred me. So when customers post pictures of their orders on Facebook, it is considered a referral if one of their friends place a new order after seeing photos of my work. This information is recorded and it is very helpful when sending out thank you gifts, tracking loyal customers, and best-selling items. The second line states the color scheme. It tells the customer the color combination includes choice of fabrics, threads, and embroidery designs, and it is a combination of pink and white polka dot fabrics with black thread. So the color scheme that the customer would have given me is pink, white, and black. The third line is a clear description of the budget and what will be included in the order. In this case, it would be a $65 baby ensemble, and the set includes a personalized blanket, a personalized bib, a teddy bear, a 6-piece diaper sample from Pampers brand, diaper wipes, Pampers brand, and baby powder packed in a container. The next line talks about the container. This item is the container that the items will be packed in. Okay, so the customers are given a variety of options such as a boutique box, a wicker basket, a plastic tub bin, a custom-made sack, or even a display box. This is all determined in that correspondence and communication that I've made with the customer. The next line is the description for the personalized blanket included in this order. It shows the price of the item when purchased separately, but the price of the blanket has been applied already, so the cost of the item is not listed here. Following the information for the personalized item will be the embroidery request. The title indicates the embroidery will be done on one line, and the description states the personalization request and the thread color that will be used. The embroidery font is stated as well. It tells the customer the name of the font, the embroidery designing company, and the size of the font that will be used. The next line is the second personalized item included in this order. It is a customized bib. The description tells the details that the item will be made in, and in this case it would be a pink and white polka dot fabric. We would be adding a trim, which is going to be a ruffle trim, using the same pink and white polka dot fabric. If this item was purchased separately, it would cost $18.50, but because the price has already been included in the ensemble, it is not listed here. After each personalized item, the embroidery request will always follow. In this case, it is a single line embroidery request. It tells the personalization request as well as the color thread we will be using. Thereafter, the embroidery font will follow. So it will tell the name of the embroidery font, the company that we're using, and the size of the embroidery font. Payment options are clearly stated. It states payment options are provided to you based on the service request, your deadline or due date, and total balance for services. Based on the rate for this order, your balance due is $65. So payment option number 1 is presented. Pay the balance in full of $65, and then payment option number 2 is presented, where the balance is broken down into 2 payments with 60% deposit due upon agreement of this contract. contract. And in this case, it would be $39. And then it talks about 40%, which is $26 remaining balance due prior to delivery of the order. And then it also gives the deadline due dates for these payments. Okay, so in this case, $39, which is the first payment, is due by January 20th. So if you remember, when the customer opens the invoice, they are going to have the amount due for the entire order, and they can make that payment for the deposit smaller, okay, as long as that full deposit amount that's required is paid by that first due date. And then they can move on to paying towards the second deposit as well, as long as it is made by that second due date, and then the order will be delivered, which is shipped and delivered by the date that I am stating. Now with payment option number 3, it's a little bit different. The payments are broken down into 3. However, the order is delayed as well, and it clearly states that. So your balance can be broken into 3 payments, but will delay the progress in your order. 40% is required. So with payment option number 2, I am requiring a 60% deposit, whereas with payment option number 3, it's broken down a little bit smaller. It is a 40% deposit due. Okay, and then the next deposit is going to be 30%, and then the final deposit is going to be another 30%. But because customers are requesting this option, this is not a situation where this can be applied to an order that's due within 2 to 3 weeks. So this means the order will not be delivered until a minimum of 4 weeks, but no more than 6 weeks, providing that they paid the balance. Okay, so that means that if this is a larger order with a larger balance, let's say of $150, $200, they can break it up. Or if the customer is not planning to attend an event until some time ahead, they can also break it up as well. So for example, if someone was attending a baby shower in August and they just wanted to kind of get it out of the way before the summertime started, they can contact me in June and we can start here and just kind of, break it up along. As long as those dates are met with the payments that I am requiring, we would be good. Okay, so the customers still have a lot of flexibility here. And now when we talk about payment method, this is clearly stated, okay? However, sometimes cash payments are an option, and in some cases it's not an option. So it wouldn't be an option if the customer lived in Florida, okay? Because it would only be available if the customer can actually give me a cash payment, meaning they could stop by my studio and submit a cash deposit, or we can meet up maybe in the local community and I could accept a cash deposit. But when it's out of state order or it's a time or distance that are factors here, then debit or credit cards are the only option. The expected delivery date is clearly printed on this statement. It's stated in the payment options arrangement and here. For the delivery area, it depends on how this order will be delivered. If I am hand delivering this order, it's going to have a time, the person who is going to receive it, and the address. If this order is a surprise, it will not have a telephone number, and that's when I am really relying on communicating with the person who placed this order. I'm going to call them and text them so they can confirm that the person that I am delivering this to is available at that address that I am heading to. Okay, now if this was being shipped, this area would have the shipping information such as the company, if I'm using United States Postal Service or FedEx and so forth. It would also have a tracking number. It would also have a delivery date as well. This is considered one of the most important parts on this statement, entering contract and consent agreement. It states by submitting payment or deposit for the service or contract, you are entering contract with Kandia Haynesworth Designs and you are authorizing payments to be deducted from your charge account for embroidery services, and you agree to the terms on this statement for payments and all policies stated below, which includes all sales are final. Your payment also is considered a confirmation that you have reviewed the spelling for personalization and you agree it is correct, as well as the due date for your order, delivery information, and time. So I consider this to be the most important part of this statement. The reason being is because, number one, it is clearly telling the customer, if they didn't know any other time that this is a contract, they know now. They are requesting my services. I expect to be paid. They are authorizing me to deduct payments from their charge account. They are authorizing services to be rendered based on the agreement that they are making, number one, and they are agreeing to all the other policies that are associated with this particular contract, okay? And the one that I like that I pointed out was all sales are final. So if you miss it below, you didn't miss it here. And then it goes on to give a more detailed explanation, and it tells them that your payment, by submitting payment to Kandia Haynesworth Designs, you are stating that all of the information that you guys have talked about prior to this statement is correct, and it is on this statement. So that means the spelling, that means the due date, that means the delivery information and time, okay? So for example, the expected delivery date is stated on this statement twice, okay? So if the customer calls me and says, oh, well, I thought that, delivering it on February 2nd would be great because I thought the baby shower was on the February 4th, which is that weekend, but I actually found out is actually sooner. It's the customer's responsibility at that point. It's not my fault. Okay, and I will hold them to that because I have printed it on this statement twice, and by submitting payment, they are stating that they confirmed all this information to be correct and true. And so it's very important that you are very clear. You tell your customer exactly what your expectations are. You give them indication of what they should expect from you as well. Okay, so moving forward, I want to take a look at the amount due, and I'm going to do a separate page on this because when you accept deposits from your customers, it would be printed here. It doesn't show at this point because technically the customer did not make payments. So I'm going to do a separate page so you can see how it is recorded. Okay, so here are the terms of agreement and policies for Kandia Haynesworth Designs. And so if you remember just above this, where they were entering the contract and consent agreement, the last line states that you agree to the terms on this statement for payments and all policies stated below, which includes all sales are final. So these are the policies that I am talking about that are below. The first thing that I do is give them instructions on how to cancel an order. We don't like cancellations, but they do happen. People need to cancel. People want to cancel. It's their right to cancel if they are within a specific time frame. And in this case, if I generate an invoice and I send it to them on the 13th and the payment is due on the 20th, if I don't hear from them around the 21st, the 22nd, the 23rd, the invoice is going to automatically be canceled. No big deal. No worries. No monies have been exchanged. Nothing needs to be disputed. It's just a simple reason that they change their mind or they want to go into a different direction. And keep in mind that just because they cancel this order does not mean that they won't order from you again, but how this process is handled can determine if they will refer you or order from you again. They were attracted to your services for some reason in the first place, right? And so don't discourage them entirely just because they may have canceled an order that you may have been excited about, okay? However, the next part talks about if you would like to cancel an order if payment have been made. Okay, so we're talking about I send an an invoice out on the 13th, is due on the 20th, and they submit a deposit or they submit payment in full. Let's talk about the idea of submitting payment in full. In this case, the invoice would be $65. If they submitted payment in full, I'm going to keep 60% of that, and I'm going to refund them the 40% of that. So if you remember, 60% of that $65 balance was $39, and then the remaining, which was 40%, was $26. That 60% is going to cover the cost of materials that I've invested in. Is going to cover the cost of the time, okay, that I've invested in as well, okay? So I'm not going to keep their monies 100%, but I will keep at least 60% to cover the cost of my material, supplies, and labor. Now, if they've invested only a deposit, which is that 60%, then they will not be entitled to any kind of refund or funds due to them. So this means that if, again, the order was $65 and they submitted a payment for 60%, which is $39, then it is going to be a wash. I will not refund them anything because I still need to cover the cost of materials, supplies, and the labor that I've already invested. So moving forward, if you look at the policy and report of errors, it does happen. It don't happen often, but there are times where, you know what, you can kind of be distracted or something and you can make an error. However, when that don't happen, then you need to stand firm on all sales are final, no returns, nor exchanges for store credit or refund unless an error has been made. Okay, so unless I make an error, which is Kandia Haynesworth Designs, and it can be proven that I've made an error, then I will present the opportunity for the customer to get a full refund, or they can apply the funds to a future order. But I will not hold their funds hostage after I've made an error. So for example, this order, we had the personalization as the name Michaela, okay, and it was a Mikayla. Suppose I spelled it Makayla, and all of the documentation, all the correspondence clearly stated MI. I am not going to try to backslide out of giving this customer the money or try to twist and turn my way out of giving them their money back or have a chokehold on their funds. The bottom line is they did what they were supposed to do. They followed the payment arrangement or the agreement, and I was the one who messed up. I need to give them their money back or ask them, what would you like me to do? Because I need to make this better. And once again, just because they want a refund doesn't necessarily mean that they won't order from you again. How you handle this, your mistake, can really determine if they order from you again or if they recommend you to anyone or tell the world how your customer service sucks and how you tried to rip them off. You don't want that happening because, as we know, customers post pictures of our items and they communicate with all their friends and the entire world sometimes about our services. So make sure that it is a pleasant experience even if the transaction proves to be unsuccessful due to your error. Okay, so moving forward, I do explain that customers are responsible for all incorrect information submitted to Kandia Haynesworth Designs for embroidery. Customers are not entitled to refund or funds applied to the orders if the error was made by them. This means if you submit the incorrect spelling for personalization to Kandia Haynesworth Designs and request for it to be corrected after embroidery services are in the process or completed, a new invoice will be generated and payment will be inspected in full. Okay, however, I got to tell you that I am a bit flexible here because this has happened a lot of times, and I can give you a couple of explanations on how this has happened. Okay, let's say for example this order. This is a $65 baby ensemble that includes two personalized items, which is the blanket and the bib. Let's say for example the color scheme is pink, white, and black. But in the process while I was, presenting color schemes to the customer, I presented pink, white, and purple, and she was undecided but finally said, I'm gonna go with pink, white, and black. And let's say I started with the bib but I had not gotten to the blanket yet, and she calls me up and she says, Kandia, I thought about it, I really don't want pink, white, and black, I really want to do pink, white, and purple. Okay, at that point I'm not going to issue her a new invoice for $65, okay, because I didn't even get to the blanket yet. I am going to issue her an invoice for the $18.50 to cover the cost of the bib. Okay, so that's what I mean by covering the cost of the materials or labor or whatever was done. I'm going to be as fair as possible, but I'm not going to take a loss. Okay, now changes made to the order. Again, it happens where customers want to change the thread or sometimes the fabric color. Even after looking at the swatches that are presented to them, they decide one way and then call you back a couple of days later and say they thought about it and they want to go into a different direction. Depending on where I am in the order, I will try to accommodate the customer as much as I possibly can without my company taking a loss. That's never an option for Kandia Haynesworth Designs to take a loss. I'm never going to cheat a customer, rip rip a customer off. I'm always going to be fair. I'm going to try my best to be as accommodating as I possibly can, but that doesn't mean that I take a loss because someone changed their mind or they made an error. It doesn't mean that I take a loss. So that needs to be your bottom line as well, that accommodating a customer or even going the extra distance or out of your way sometimes doesn't necessarily mean that you have to lose. Okay, so as long as that's clear, you'll be okay. And that is clearly discussed here, that they could change whatever they want to change, but the fees are determined by Kandia Haynesworth Designs, and it must be paid in full to move forward. So I will try to shrink that down as much as I possibly can, again, without taking a loss. And then it talks about methods of payment that I accept. Okay, payment options, which are checks, credit cards, debit cards, cash payments, and I also accept credit cards and debit cards by telephone. Now with checks, I only accept checks from businesses, and they have to make it payable to Kandia Haynesworth. And then with credit cards or debit cards, I send an electronic invoice, and they will submit payment, securely and privately on the device that they use. And I also tell them that on the statement is going to appear as Kandia Haynesworth Com. So they kind of, look forward to seeing it, the charge that will be deducted from their account. Now, cash payment, again, if they are able to submit a cash payment for deposit in full, or, a portion of it, great. However, it needs to be paid in full before this order is shipped out of my studio, or if it's being delivered, it needs to be paid in full. There are no CODs here, okay? And I also encourage the customer to communicate with me. Call me or text me and let me know what would you like to do if you are a local customer, because I'm always out and about and no telling where I might be. So, it can happen. You just have to kind of communicate with your customer and make sure that they feel open enough to communicate with you. I also accept payments by telephone. All right. Now, I accept credit cards or debit cards if they have the Visa MasterCard logo. However, I do require that the name of the customer be the name on the card. So this is not a situation where someone can call with their husband's card. That's not accepted, because I've been burned so many times, and I can tell you that someone will call and say, I have my customer's card, and even have authorization to use it. Okay, and then you charge it. You get paid for it. You ship the merchandise out. Then they look at it and say, wow, this was really pricey for $100. I understand that it's custom, but geez, this is $100. You know what? You didn't really authorize it. I was the one who called. So honey, why don't you call your credit card company and dispute the charge? And guess what's going to happen? The credit card company is going to side with them, because technically he or the other person did not authorize you to charge their card. So from that point on, I can tell you from years ago of being burned so many times that I try to dot my I's and cross my T's as much as I possibly can. And then for terms, I do offer terms. A lot of people will say, I'm surprised that you do. But of course, there are some, restrictions here. For business accounts, it's 30 days, and this means embroidery services are rendered and orders are delivered prior to payment. So that means that I already know that if I accept an order from a business account, that means that it can come from a school, it can come from a medical facility, and it's going to be an abundance of order. First of all, these orders are not going to be 2-week orders. They are going to be put on the longer end, that 6-week delivery time, that 4-week delivery time, because number one, I know that I'm not getting paid up front. I'm going to have to wait for my money. Okay, so they are not really priority. Even though they are bulk, they are not priority. And a lot of times when they are bulk orders like that, you have to discount them so much anyway. So they are not priority at Kandia Haynesworth Designs. I do take them seriously, and I do provide an excellent service to the best of my ability, but I'm not going going to put it above a loyal customer who have been with me and stayed with me and paid me on time and no headaches over a customer that I have to wait for funds for. However, if I agree to it, then that's what it is. So if I agree to take 100 jackets and embroider 100 jackets and I know that it's going to take me 30 days to get paid, I'm not going to be mad that I've agreed to that. I'm going to embroider the 100 jackets, send them the 100 jackets, and then wait for my payment. However, on personal accounts, 7 days embroidery services are not rendered in 7 days, but you have 7 days to submit a deposit or pay the amount in full, okay? And again, it does state that the embroidery services are not rendered, okay, and orders are not delivered. Customers have 7 days to make the initial deposit or submit payment after the invoice is sent from KandiaHaynesworth.com. And this pretty much sums up everything that I have been stating in regards to contracts. And because, I've been burned so many times, I can tell you that I have been burned, sadly enough by not even strangers. I mean, customers who find you on the internet, they don't have any kind of connection, but I have been burned by friends and family members. And so these kind of contracts applies to everyone. Not only that, it really makes it very easy because regardless to the person, if your customer is your mom, your aunt, your grandmother, listen, miscommunication can occur in any kind of transaction. And so your embroidery contract, your embroidery service contract doesn't need to be lengthy or involved like mine. You got to keep in mind that this is only transformed into this elaborate statement only after I have been burned. Okay, so if you have a situation where you don't necessarily need to have all of this information in, then don't do it just because this is something that I am doing at Kandia Haynesworth Designs. I have no problem explaining my contract line by line with customers. And in fact, I even prefer to do that. Okay, so if they don't understand something, I really want them to send me a text or, Kandia, when you have time to talk about the statement. I love to talk about the statement because if it's a mistake that I've made on this statement, or if it's a charge that they think is unfair or a charge that needs to be explained, then that is the time to do it. And I'm glad and grateful that they are giving me the opportunity to do it. But having a service contract, I am telling you, ladies and gentlemen, can save you a world of headaches and migraines. Okay, it also presents your customers to your company in a professional manner. Okay, so jotting down contracts on a napkin, it will hold up in a court of law. It will. I've seen it on Judge Judy. I've seen it on People's Court. I've seen it. However, you don't want to go to those terms and hoping that you're going to find a piece of napkin or something. And I would even suggest that if you don't have your computer, if you don't have your phone, if you don't have a system or software where you have an invoicing system, then get a pad. Get a pad that have your terms of agreement or your contract clearly stated. Even if you have to write it down, you can go and get a pad, a carbon copy pad at the super center office stores or office supply stores. It doesn't have to be something that you've had made. So this is how my embroidery service contract is. I have been talking so much. My mouth is so dry. I'm sorry for swallowing in your ears. But I really wanted to make it thorough and clear. I know this is a bit lengthy, but this works for me. This works for my customers, and I am going with it. This might not work for you, but this works for me. And I can tell you, I don't have issues with my customers. I don't have problems because everything is stated. I am covered. So in the event someone wanted to bail out of a commitment that we've made, I am very prepared to go to court and show all the text messages, all the correspondence, and the statement agreement that they have committed to. Well, that's all for today. Thank you so much. If you want to know where I get this software from, it is from a company called Wave Accountant. Okay, so you can go to waveaccounting.com or you can go to waveapps.com, and it is a free software. However, they do have ways that you can upgrade the service if you want to get more things, you know, to your account. But I use the free service. I've been using it for a few years now, and I absolutely love it. It provides so much flexibility. It presents your company in a nice professional manner. As you can see, it's an electronic invoice. The customers have the ability to submit payment with the credit card features. I love it. So waveaccounting.com or waveapps.com, go to it, set it up, just look at it, you know, look around, then tell me what you think. Also, tell me what you think about my service contract, and if you think that I should tweak it a little bit or shorten it, whatever you think, post your comments and feedback below. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. You can also visit me at Embroidery Boss on Facebook. If you are an embroidery business owner or a hobbyist, you should consider joining. This group is not for people who just like embroidery. This is for people who love embroidery and who are in the industry. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining in, and I'll see you next time.